Welcome back to my channel! If this is your first time visiting, my name is Bwandungi. Welcome! Please consider subscribing. Today what I'd like to have a conversation with you about is telling your story. It's telling our stories. One of the YouTube channels that I'm subscribed to is the Grapevine TV. What they do is that they gather young Black people to have conversations about current issues that are affecting them socially, politically, economically, and they have some really great discussions about these different things. Last week, their discussion was prompted by a comment that was made by the President of the United States when he described predominantly Black and brown countries as shithole countries. In listening to their conversation, there were so many errors that were being made because we are not telling our stories. The purpose of this video is not to be a reaction video where I take point by point the stuff that they said and counter it with arguments and examples of my own. That's not what I'm trying to do. But what was very clear is that we're not telling stories. We're not telling stories about the countries that we come from. We're not telling stories about the countries that we have visited or that we have moved to, which is vitally important as the world shrinks because of technological advancement. Somebody else is telling stories about us, and it's important for us to gain control of these narratives and tell the truth so that we can control our narratives and stop stories that are being told by people with ulterior motives or people with just wrong information. It's also evident from the reaction to Wakanda that we have not been telling the stories. For this to be the first time when people see the richness of the culture and the richness of the land and the richness of the people and our own achievement in moving ourselves forward. We must tell these stories, but how are we going to do it? So these are the 5 tips that I have for you and for me to get back control of the narrative so we are the ones telling the stories. Be honest. Be truthful. Truth for a lot of writers has often seemed like they need to go and find the poorest people to tell those stories there because they feel that the stories of success, the stories of prosperity are not completely honest. In recent years, people have been finding a great balance between telling stories of prosperity and still mentioning the poverty. But the one thing that we are not telling, that we have not told yet, is our experiences when we are away from home in what are known as developed countries. To be honest about when you encounter poverty, when you encounter racism, when you encounter nepotism, when you encounter corruption, the reason these are important is because it gives a complete picture. We cannot continue consuming marketing from developed countries about what life there is like in contrast to the way life runs in our countries. Just tell the truth. Explore. One of the disadvantages that I face and that many people face, including the people who were on the Grapevine TV episode, is that we live in cities, and sometimes that can obscure our perception of what is happening in the rest of the city. This, of course, doesn't mean that you put yourself in harm's way. There are things that you can do in the city in which you live that will allow you to encounter people whose experiences are not like your own. Understand the importance of variety in your story. There's something so frustrating about some stories that are told where they have a couple and one is a doctor and one is a lawyer. Like, those are the only things that would make someone successful. And the problem with telling stories like that, they don't understand what variety in prosperity looks like. There are also stories that are told about poor people who are house help or the local drunk or the drug addict. But in between all those stories exist people who don't look like that. And that is why it's important to have variety, to go out and explore and see what other kinds of people are out there so that when you tell a story, it is complete. Be respectful. Sometimes, no matter how much you want to tell a story, it may not be yours to tell at all, and you have to just let go of it. Especially if you belong to a group of people who have historically oppressed the group of people that you want to talk about. I'm not talking strictly about race here because even in my own country, there are people who oppressed others when they were in power. This, of course, doesn't mean that you can't tell a story with characters who have been oppressed in a way that you have not been. Your character can experience some of their struggle, but cannot tell the story for them. For example, it would be irresponsible for a cis hetero man who's against LGBT to tell the coming out story of an LGBT person. No matter what internal transformation may be happening or could happen, it's just not your story to tell. Finally, tell the story. If you do not tell the story, somebody else is going to tell your story, and they can make it look however they want. They're not concerned about you. Why would they be? They have their own motives in telling your story, and it is important for you to take it out of their hands and tell it yourself. Use YouTube, write a blog, write a book, write a paper. Do whatever it is you need to do, but please tell those stories. There are too few of us who are on YouTube, and these stories need to be told. Show us where you live. Show us where you work. Show us how you get to work. Show us where you buy food. Let us see your life. Let us see it being lived out loud, because it is important for your story to be told so nobody else has control over it. Shyness is not a virtue. It is not an excuse for you to not tell your story. So get out there and tell it. I want to see it, and there are plenty of us who want to see it, so that the next time your people are represented, it's not a child holding a piece of paper with a hut on it, and that is her entire view of who you are and who your people are and where you come from. As always, thank you so much for being here with me. I hope that in some way I have encouraged you to tell your story, to go ahead and take control of your narrative so we can get to know who you are and about the wonderful places that you come from. If you have not subscribed yet, please go ahead and click that button. Here's an animation telling you how to subscribe. Please like this video, leave your comments, leave places where you have told your stories in the comments section, and don't forget to share this video. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye!